My name is Thorsten Neumann. I'm actually the president and CEO for TAPA EMEA, the Transported Asset Protection Association for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Beside that, I'm actually also a member of working groups in two different working groups in the European Commission. One is the Landsec and one is an ITS SSTPA, which is Secured Parking Place Initiative. And finally, I'm a so-called industry expert for the NATO civil group and civil experts for communication, transportation, and cyber threat within the supply chain.
Okay, very, very good. My name is David Van Turton. I'm the CEO of Pharma Logistics Network. This is a network of specialized companies, agents, freight forwarders who have the industry knowledge and the training and the skills to be able to move temperature controlled, high value pharmaceuticals globally from door to door. My main job though is I'm a managing director of a logistics company called Cavalier Logistics. We specialize in biopharma shipments. We're a US company. However, I'm based in London. I head up the London office and we cover all of EMEA also. Just to add, this is a really great experience to be able to, or an opportunity to be able to talk with Thorsten, because we find there's so many challenges in the supply chain and so many thefts. A big thing is counterfeit medicine, which we can come on to. But yeah, so that is me.
Yeah, so just to give you also a little bit of background, on TAPA and what TAPA really means. As you know, TAPA is the biggest global association working on supply chain resilience or supply chain security. Actually, we are a little bit more than 20 years old, founded in the US by big high technology companies. And right now, only in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, we have a little bit more than 500 member companies, all over the chain. And I think that's also the biggest differentiator, when we talk about TAPA as an industry association. We are representing the entire supply chain from an end-to-end perspective. Plus, and I think that's also quite important, we create actually standards, and we have the most accepted supply chain security standards in the world to mitigate your risk to the lowest level possible. And as you said already quite correctly, it's quite interesting to take a look how the world is changing, especially over the last couple of months with the COVID crisis we are all in. And we also see more will come. So it's really a kind of a challenge we've never seen before. We see border controls. We do not have border controls for the last decades or the last couple of years. We see harbors are closed. We see that airports are heavily impacted, by the COVID crisis and the COVID regulations and other stuff. And of course, one of the things we are all looking forward to is really what will be the challenges and how can we control the vaccine distribution all over the world. We already gave us a warning, which has been followed by Interpol recently, that we do see a significant risk related to the vaccine distribution, especially because within the modern supply chain, we never ever had this kind of situation that we have a so high value and high attracted product going to the world in a very short period of time. So, and as you said it, quite interesting is really that whilst we are preparing everything, the organized criminals are already prepared and only waiting for the weakest link within our supply chain.
Exactly. And if I can add to that, one of the biggest challenges that we find is security within the supply chain, and I'm speaking as a representative of all the logistics companies that specialize in moving high value medicine around the globe. Now, what we tend to find as well is that in the UK, a perfect storm is brewing. We've got the uncertainty with Brexit, we've got tighter border restrictions, we've got vehicles now with product, maybe temperature control vehicles that are parked in a parking area, which is a target for organized criminals. We have also these organized criminals in this global world we're in. They know that a batch of a vaccine for coronavirus, for example, is an attractive proposition. The world is a small place now, thanks to the internet, and organised criminals can easily move these vaccines. There are countries that will just take them, no questions asked. It's a black market out there. And all that we can do is we say to our clients and we say to our members, never skimp on security. Yeah. Always ensure that you've route planned, you use accredited companies, maybe like yourself with TAPA, or who can actually, they know the routes, they know the risks. And it is really, it's an eye-opening time of the world now. And, with security, it's keeping a lot of people awake at night.
I think you're absolutely right, David. And I think you hit the nail on the head here related to, if you take a look right now, we had, or we still have, but we have a very interesting supply chain. And the supply chain was working over the last years, like so stable, like never before. And now we have the situation that we are in a COVID crisis. We are really pressured to have the vaccine distribution as soon as possible. And we are in the middle of the Brexit. Yeah. And that's really something, we are all looking forward to. And as you also said, that's really quite interesting. Whilst a lot of the, let's say, the modern West countries do always follow, business ethics, code of conduct and this kind of stuff. There are a lot of countries looking forward to get the vaccine, on the cheapest way possible. And they do not follow all the principles we do follow. And of course, organized criminals, as you said it quite correctly, are exactly using this kind of knowledge and this kind of situation for their advantage. And it's also quite interesting because what you mentioned in the modern world where we are in right now, with the globalization, one of the things what happened over the last couple of years, because of the modern world, because of the globalization, is that the black market disappeared completely. And the black market is part of the normal market we are in every day. 10 years ago or 5 years ago, you had a visible black market. You went to the black market, you bought something when you had an interest. Nowadays, the black market is part of the normal retail chain within the global community. And that's also interesting where criminals are really in a position to to turn around their stolen products within a very short period of time, and it's also, because you are an expert in the pharmaceutical supply chain, 10 years ago, I still remember when I gave my first presentations as TAPA to pharmaceutical associations, they had no challenges, because they always said, Thorsten, our market is so restricted, you cannot buy our products in a normal store, you cannot buy it on the retail chain, you cannot buy it in the internet. This changed significantly, dramatically. Now you can buy, not always genuine, and you're absolutely right, but you can buy either genuine pharmaceutical products or counterfeit products all over the world. If I'm going to the World Wide Web, I can buy everything. I don't know if it's genuine, but you can buy everything.
Well, that is exactly right. So you may have heard in the news, and in the UK, we have a Medicines and Regulatory Health Authority, and that's known as the MHRA. And this was a body that it broke away, obviously because it had to, from the European Medicines Agency that it reported up to. Now, the MHRA has very, very high standards. And this is the organisation that gave the UK the licence for the first Pfizer vaccine. But what has happened now, or what we are seeing, is that the individual health authorities in each of these countries are kind of going their separate ways. Now, this causes also risks in the supply chain because there's a thing called the Falsified Medicines Directory. Now, every product on the market, every pack of medicine, every vaccine, it's got a serial number, it's got an expiry date and a batch number. Now, what the criminals are very good at doing now, and even on a lower level, they would go through the trash of hospitals, of cancer hospitals. I can name one in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, which recently had, it had kind of a whole, one of these wheelie bin skips just taken. the Erasmus Medical Centre, I think it was. But the reason is because they know, the criminals know, by going through the trash, they get an exact replication of the packaging, of the vials, of the bottle the medicine comes in. Now, as you're probably aware, any medicine that you take, it has an active ingredient, and the active ingredient is probably 5% of the complete tablet. Let's just say in tablet form. The other 95% acts as a buffer. What the criminals can do with their kind of scientists in a lab, and it all sounds very kind of James Bond-esque, is that they actually take out the active ingredient, put in a placebo ingredient, put this medicine back into the supply chain, and then they've got the active ingredient, which then they make a buffer for, and then they sell it on the black market. And this is where the people are amazed when, we go to conferences and, we talk to, like wholesalers that just buy their product off the internet and they have different suppliers, is that I have to say that as a logistics company with a WD, that's a wholesale license that the MRHA give me, which I've got, I have to do my checks and balances. And it never ceases to amaze me the amount of counterfeit product there is on the market. But, to close on this, whatever product we're buying nowadays is counterfeit.
It's quite interesting, because what I'm getting out of that also, how really deep the insider threat is within our supply chain, and how really the organized criminals really are already inside our own genuine supply chain. And I can give you also a good example, like similar to the example you gave to me with the hospital in the Netherlands. Now it's really, so one or two of our TAPA members, they had a significant incident a couple of months ago in Italy. And it's a huge warehouse with thousands of pallets, so you know that there are thousands of Euro pallets inside the warehouse. And the criminals, broke into the warehouse when it was closed over the weekend, and they stole exactly 2 Euro pallets. That's it. So you have thousands of Euro pallets with high value items, but they only stole 2 Euro pallets. And after, they started the investigations, we knew exactly why they targeted this 2 Euro pallets, because it was exactly what you are referring to. It was special ingredients you use for one pharmaceutical product, and the 2 Euro pallets actually had a value of 40 million euro. And we talk about 2 Euro pallets, and that's really the situation, we are in right now. And if you look at the vaccine, distribution, and that's also where we are heavily engaged, like, for example, with the German Ministry of Transport, or with the NATO and other things, where we already highlighted, that because the governments all over Europe are under significant pressure to get the vaccine to the centers as soon as possible, they do everything possible to send it. But the criminals knows that. They know exactly. They have only one manufacturing, they have only one supply chain, and it's only one warehouse, and they know exactly here's the warehouse, because they already positioned their people into the supply chain the government will use, and that's really interesting to see that. And I don't know the value of the vaccine, I don't know, but I strongly believe it will be very expensive. That's at least my guess. And looking at the size of a vaccine and looking at the value on a Euro pallet, I strongly believe that one truckload of the COVID vaccine will be millions of euro. We're not even 100 million or whatever. And as you said it also quite correctly, when the organized criminals are in a position really to turn over their products in a shorter time than we as a genuine supply chain, and when they are in a position to get hold of one entire truckload of the COVID vaccine, they will sell it on the same day to a country. And yes, you said it, like Russia, like Belarus, or going to Africa, for example, because these countries will be more than happy, when they can get hold of an entire truckload of the COVID vaccine.
And I think also when we talk about Africa, I did have the opportunity to visit a well-known pharmaceutical company's warehouse in Switzerland about 5 months ago. And it was a huge warehouse operation. It was on 3 different stories. And then each section of the warehouse had had a section really for each country in the world. And then I got to this part of the warehouse that looked a bit forgotten. And I said, "Where's this?" And I said, "This is Africa." I went, "What? This is for Africa?" They said, "Well, yeah, well, they never pay their bills, and we're not all that interested in distribution." And I immediately thought, that is why falsified medicines find their way to Africa so easily, because the big drug companies won't deal with a lot of the governments in Africa. So therefore, then they have to get their product in by some way, and then they turn to the black market. And I think the challenge is to, and maybe COVID would maybe do this, or definitely there's a role for the World Health Organization, is really to get hold of these pharmaceutical companies and say, "Look, it's Africa, lower your price, we'll underwrite the cost, just get these vaccines through on time, in temperature, in a secure supply chain." And I think that's something that we could, the point of maybe when we attend these conferences is to try to find a way forward, because until we do so, there is just going to be more and more scope for black market pharmaceuticals, falsified medicines. And I think you will find more and more, Thorsten, is that your TAPA members, every day your inbox will have more and more kind of, you'll have more and more information about, hey, we had a theft, or we had this product stolen. And secondly, just add on about the insider threat is absolutely huge in civil aviation. My own company, we are what's called a regulated agent. So anybody that works for me has to have a 5-year checkable work record. It has to have a criminal records check. And, I've still had a vehicle. I still have problems with employment. I still have problems employing people. And, it's one of the challenges. And the disappointing thing that I find is sometimes some of my clients, and I hear this from the other members of the Pharma Logistics Network, and we all have the same kind of level of standards and compliance with recruitment and everything that we do, is that we have to charge a certain cost. And what we find, our clients sometimes, they don't like the cost because it's a bit too high, but it's high because we have to put in the investment and the training and the security. And then we find that the same clients have gone to a cheaper, more cost-effective logistics company who we know do not validate their supply chain. So I just feel that sometimes it's a vicious circle where you've got the good guys that are really trying to make the difference, but hey, it's not cheap. And you've got maybe not so much the drug companies, but it's the middlemen who want to maximize their profit. So they squeeze the freight companies down, and then the freight companies ended up skimping on security, and then say la vie, then you get the problem from your clients when they have €2 pallets of super high value active ingredients stolen from them. So.
Yeah, that's also why I was referring to, for example, that we, in our organizations or associations, companies, at the second when you are engaged in, doing a business in a Western country, you follow all the principles, you follow all the standards, you need to be compliant, you need to be tax compliant, SOX compliant, business ethics, code of conducts, you have minimum requirements, you have the cold chain, you have security standards, you have security measurements and all the stuff. And then you see the organized criminals, for example, or other countries, and they don't care, they really don't care. They say, no, for me, it's more important to make the profit.
Yeah.
So we have all the investments, as you said it quite correctly, and before I joined an industry association, I worked for global companies, big players. I was based in the US. I was doing a code of conduct training every 12 months, I'm completely background screened and all this kind of stuff. And of course, all the things means you add cost to your operations, you add cost to your business, and whilst you or a pharmaceutical company is having a lot of money engaged in research and development, HR, finance, and all this kind of stuff, nothing is part of that for the black market, nor for the people engaged in cargo crime or supply chain, incidents from organized criminals. As you mentioned, like the black market or the counterfeit people, you know, they go to the rubbish areas of a modern hospital. You know why? That's their research and development. That's exactly how they. This is exactly how they do it. You know, it's a minimum cost. You know, nearly zero knowledge. You know, they don't need a super high doctor or something like that. You know, they need a person who's going to the rubbish area of a hospital. You know, maybe it's even insider, maybe it's the cleaning person. Nobody knows. They pay them €50 cash, no tax. And last but not least, you know, they also sell the products without tax. You know, and it's a tremendous profit margin for them. You know, which is really quite interesting. It's the same with the cargo crime. You know, sometimes, even if we are engaged already in that for more than 20 years, you know, sometimes I'm asking myself the question, you know, who's buying that? You know, how can you know, for some stuff it's easy, you know, even I could sell, you know, let's say 10,000 of the newest smartphones. Maybe I can even do it, you know, but they're so specific products sometimes, you know, like what you said, like cancer, you know, pharmaceutical stuff, but there's always a market, you know, when there's a need, there's always a market. And you said it quite correctly. It's like, we had another case, you know, where there was a significant incident, you know, of a high value and high technology product, which you can block, you know, with the serial number, you know, and the manufacturer immediately announced our products cannot be used in Europe anymore because we block them in Europe. And a blocker replied, oh, it's not needed anymore. They are in Russia and in Africa on the same day, you know, and it was true. We realized that with the networking, you know, companies, that the first products were already activated actually 16 hours after the theft occurred in a Western country. You know, this is exactly how great they are, you know, how they really connect the dots and how they are really in a position really to use their own modern supply chain for their advantage. And it's really interesting to see that, you know, you're absolutely right.
Well, also, as you say that, is that we look at the supply chain, and let's just take it can have so many weak links. And as you know, it's a little bit like, you know, what the terrorist organizations say to, you know, governments. They say that you've got to be lucky every time. We've only got to be lucky once at the time. And this is exactly the same with the supply chain. Is that says, listen, we know the trucks, we know the routes, we have the contacts who are going to buy. All we're looking for is that weakest link. And the criminal and to add, insurance companies. Normally, I think the last time I had a vehicle stolen, the police were not even interested. I said, but we found the tracking device. You know, they're not interested. And when we look at vehicle theft in the USA, which is quite big, and you know, with the trucking of pharmaceuticals that we do in the USA with the Cavalier Logistics in the US, is that, you know, these drivers, they live on the road. They sleep in their cab, they're gone for 2 weeks at a time, you know, and it's the same across Europe. However, what tends to happen is a trailer is taken from a lorry park and no one really bats an eyelid. And it's only when the value starts to get higher, then the insurance companies might, you know, be involved. But normally it doesn't make the news. And I know there's going to be a situation in the upcoming year where it's going to be front page headlines. A trailer is going full of the COVID vaccine will disappear into the Bermuda Triangle. And I know that will happen. And then when that happens, it will be, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And it will uncover everything that we have just spoken about in the last 20 minutes, but then it will be more public knowledge. And then people say, hey, you know, and then I'll probably give you a call then, Thorsten, and say, yeah, you know what, I don't want to say I told you so, but we told you so.
Yeah, you know what? I 100% agree with you. You know, and the biggest challenge we have within our industry is cargo crime is not a sexy crime. You know, it's not a sexy crime for the media. You know, and I'm always saying to all the media guys, I said, people, you know, within the Sun or the Times or whatever, I'm saying, we carry billions of euro every day on the European street. And when there's a cargo incident, you know, like last week, there was a big incident at Schiphol airport again, and we lost millions on that. And in Germany alone, the cargo crime is up to 2.1 billion as an impact on the economy, but it's not big, you know, because because as you said it, it's not a crime which will impact you directly. It's a truck driver, and you're like, okay, yeah, but come on, it's a truck driver. What is it? And but what is really the real situation is everybody is paying for it, because all these costs are calculated into the product costs at the end of the day. And if you look at some of the statistics, like the European Union, I had a statistic where they say the impact on cargo crime, the European Union alone is up to 8.1 billion euro every year. And as I mentioned, in Germany, it's up to 2.1 billion euro every year. But nevertheless, it's still not a sexy crime for the media. If you go and rob a bank, and you only make 100,000 euro, it will be in the media, because, oh man, he robbed a bank, it's like Western, it's really like, it's like Mission Impossible. But at the same day, there was a hijack of a cargo and a truck at a major airport in Germany, and they stole 15 million euro. It wasn't in the media. We really put that into the media, So that's really quite funny.
And we had a similar situation at Heathrow Airport where crime was so bad that the big companies threatened to relocate out of the UK. This is long before Brexit, Thorsten. This is 15, 20 years ago. And what happened is that Heathrow and the UK the government had to, as usual, in a reactive way, made a task force. Closing off from me, it's been great to actually speak to another industry professional who has in-depth knowledge of the security and the supply chain. Everything we have spoken about today is a real-life event. It is happening in the world, and it needs to be addressed because we are all paying the price for this. And Thorsten, it's just been great making your acquaintance. And thank you, Pharma Africa, for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I can only mirror 100% what you said, David. It was great to talk to you, and it's really always interesting to see also the other side, related to that you are, as a logistics expert, also dealing with all the manufacturers and everything. And I also would like to say thanks to Pharma Africa for the opportunity here. I'm pretty sure, and that's my last statement, you're absolutely right with your statement that we will hear something in the news in the next couple of weeks that a big truckload or whatever, or even warehouse invasion happened with the COVID vaccine. So I cross my fingers, stay safe, stay healthy, everybody, and, talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.